All right, welcome back, Jeff Heggie. I'm glad to have you here. I'm excited today to have Sean McCaw with me. And now Sean is a former European pro basketball player, turned coach, turned educator, turned author. He's done a bunch of stuff. He's got a really cool background. He's originally from Vegas, if I'm correct. And now he is in Germany. And, you know, he's got some great stuff that I know he's going to share with us. I love being able to share with people that have got to that level in their athletic career. You know, what does it take from the mindset, from the physical side, from everything? And so we'll get into those things, but I also want him to share with us about his journey, about his book, and all sorts of things. So let's get into it. Tell us a little bit more about yourself, Sean. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to get on here with you and tell a little bit about my story, my journey. So basically after college, I went to Southern Utah University, where I'm a Hall of Fame member, proud to say that. And after that, then I came over to Europe, and I've been here since 1995, pretty much full time. I played for 13 years. Then I went right into coaching pretty much from one day to the next, you could say, and coached for another 9 years here in Germany. Then I decided to make a move for the family and retire from coaching. And I went into teaching. And that's what I've been doing the last 6 years. And that's my story in a nutshell.
All right.
Oh, and I've written my first book.
Excellent. And you know what? We're going to talk about the book, and I'm going to make sure that I've got links in the show notes and everything, but just to make sure that we're saying it up front, same name, different game. That's the name of his book. And we are going to talk more about that, but let's just kind of jump right into it. I guess the way Sean and I met, we met through Instagram, and, you know, we connected there. And then, you know, I literally 2 minutes before we jumped on this call, I just had two Southern Utah University football players walk out the door. And that was kind of a connection. I had something on Instagram about these guys, and he says, hey, that's where I played. And we got talking about his Hall of Fame there and stuff. So he's had a successful career going through college, going through the pros. And, you know, with so many of the athletes and entrepreneurs I work with, that's what they really need to know. You know, what does it take? Because, you know, you can have two very similar athletes when they're identical from the physical aspect of the game, from talent and everything, but they separate themselves through the mental game. So I guess let's go way back to start with. You know, what does it take to get to that level to play university ball, and then to take the bigger step to play at the pro level?
I was fortunate enough to be on a very good high school team. We were state champions 2 times in a row. And because of that, I was seen quite often. And I think one of the big differences is that some players are seen in high school, some players aren't. There's a lot of D3 talent or D3 players that have D1 talent, but maybe they just weren't seen. So it's not necessarily about what level you're on in college. It's what you do with the talent that you have. And I think in America, with the education system, with the sports system, with the recruiting and things like that, it's much different than over here in Europe. So I think that players back home have a distinct advantage, and they just have to use it. They just have to get out there. They have to have the mindset of wanting it more than the next person. And that's a big key, not only in high school, but also when you take the step to college. Of course, once you get to college, the competition is even that more difficult. And you definitely have to fight for your position, because there's guys coming in every year that are willing to take your position. Luckily for me, I had a pretty decent career, and I was able to then make the jump to Europe. But even though I wasn't an NBA player, I wasn't an NBA caliber player, I still had a very good career over here. But it's just the same. At every station, there are guys willing to take your spot. And over here in Europe, it's I would say it's even worse because there are 360 Division I colleges. Let's not even count the 200 or so D2s, the 200 or so D3s. Then you've got NAIA. Then you've got players from around the world, from Canada, from wherever, that are all trying to get spots over here in Europe. So it's definitely, the competition is enormous. And if you don't have the mindset of wanting it more than the next person, you're not going to last long in high school, in college, or as a pro, wherever you might play.
So what did you do to create that mindset to get to the level where you dedicated yourself enough to have that mindset to do whatever you had to do to get to that level?
Well, my father was one of my first coaches, and he really got it into my head that you have to make sacrifices. Anything that you want to do in life, whether it be playing basketball, football, baseball, bowler, water polo, whatever it is, you're going to have to make sacrifices. And that means personal sacrifices and mental and bodily sacrifices. For example, you're probably not going to go to every party. If you really want it, your social life is going to stink, right? You're not going to be able to be the social butterfly and still be at the gym at 5 o'clock in the morning getting shots up. I read recently somewhere that Reggie Miller he's a Hall of Famer, NBA Hall of Famer. He averaged 1,500 made threes every day in the offseason.
Wow.
That's 1,500 makes. How many shots do you have to get up to make 1,500 makes? And that takes time. So that means he was shooting all day, whether it was in the morning, then in the afternoon, and then in the evening. It doesn't matter. The point is it takes time to dedicate yourself to being one of the better shooters or the best shooter in NBA history. If you put in the work, it takes a whole lot of time. So you're not going to be able to go to your grandmother's birthday party. You're not going to go to the party from your best friend. You're not going to do a lot of things socially that other people are doing because you have a goal. Mentally, of course, you have to make sacrifices as well. You have to be willing to wake up in the morning, not to push snooze. That takes a total amount of dedication that very few people have. So not only are you not going to the club, but you're not hitting the snooze bar at 5 o'clock in the morning when you want to go get some shots up. You want to get some reps, and then bodily. Hey, if you're waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning, your body's tired. If you're doing that every day, your body's going to get tired, but you have to push through it. And that's just a mental thing that I think some people are just kind of born with. I think it can be developed, but there are just some people that are just born with it. I'm sure LeBron James is born with his drive. I'm sure that Kobe was born with his desire, his passion. But it's not like that for everyone. It wasn't like that for me. I'll be honest and say that I was, they have a word for it in German, schlampige Genie. That loosely translated means a lazy genius. So I was the type that I was kind of naturally gifted, but I still had to work for my talent. Although it didn't look like I was working, I was working. I had the ability somehow to make it look easier than it was, but nobody saw the times when I was in the gym. Nobody saw the times when I didn't go to a party. Nobody saw those things. So the impression that I gave was that I didn't work enough for it. Yes, it could be that if I would have worked harder, I could have been an NBA guy. No question. But for what I was doing and from what my goals were, I think I did a pretty good job and had a pretty decent career.
Right. I appreciate that because we hear the same message over and over. If people that are listening to this have listened to other episodes, it's the same thing. I had Tyson Durfee, who is a world champion tie down roper, on here, talked about the same things, the commitment and sacrifices you have to make, missing the parties, missing the different things because you've got your focus on your goal. And I think those are easy things to do when you first set those goals and set your aspirations. Right. But after a week, where are you at? After a month, where are you at? After 6 months, where are you at?
Right.
And to be dedicated to continue that. And one of the things I talk with my clients a lot about, whether it's the athletes or the entrepreneurs, is the little success habits, the little things that are easy to do, but they're easy not to do. And so I appreciate you talking even about things like not hitting the snooze, having the dedication to your routine and understanding what your why and your purpose is with your goals so you can stick with them. So exactly. I really love that. I appreciate that. And so what is it? What do you see it, whether it's in yourself or in others, to maintain that drive? Because like I said, you know what, that can be an easy thing to do for a month or maybe 2 months, but to continue until, because I'm sure even once you're at the pro level, it's not like, okay, I'm here, I can back off. No, everyone's trying to take your job.
Right. I think there are two factors what helped me. One was fear. I was afraid to get my spot taken. I was afraid to lose my job. I was afraid not to be able to feed my family. I was afraid to let those down that supported me or looked up to me, or things like that. It was a certain sense of fear, but I used it in a positive sense, not the fear that makes you cower in a corner and you can't do anything, you freeze up. I used it more in a positive sense. The other thing that probably drove me was I just like to push myself. I didn't need someone to push me. And I think that's something that's undervalued, that will to do it by yourself, for yourself. And for me, it was definitely a driving force to keep going, to keep hitting or not hitting the snooze bar, to go to the gym, to do the little things, like you said before, the little goals, to achieve the little goals that take you further. And but yeah, I would say fear and just a sense of not wanting to let myself down and to push myself were huge factors.
So one of the things about developing a high level of confidence is knowing that you're prepared. So when you do these things, it's naturally going to help you build confidence. Now, from either your experience as a player, as a coach, whatever, what would you tell someone, especially you see this with young players, especially, that they've put in the time, they've worked hard, but that doesn't guarantee everything is going to go right.
No,
when things go wrong and their confidence level drops, what would you tell them?
Wow. That's a good question, man. It's not going to happen for everybody. You're going to lose. I was listening to your interview with Shawnee, and she said something like that, like, you're going to lose at some point. You're not going to win every game. So how you handle disappointment if things don't go your way, and to stay consistent with and stay the course with what you've been doing, and not say, okay, I lost or I didn't play good, so I'm going to change my whole routine. No, you have to stay the course and believe that what you're doing is right. Now, if you have doubts that the way that you're going is not the right way, or it's not the right training method, or whatever, then of course make changes. That has to be evaluated. But usually you do that after a season. You evaluate your progress, how much progress you've made, how much you haven't. Has your game changed at all? The way you've been doing things like that. Usually that happens after a season, that self-reflectiveness. And it's easy to throw things totally overboard when you lose, or when you play bad, or you're disappointed and stuff like that. But that's the time when you really have to stay the course, and that makes the difference between elite athletes, or one of the things. There's quite a few, but that's definitely one thing that makes a difference between elite athletes and also rans. And even elite athletes have a time or times when it just doesn't work. And there are two things you can do. You can put your head in the sand and say, okay, this is not working, or you can work harder. You can do what you've been doing and keep going with it. Adjustments can be made, but they shouldn't be on a whim. It should be a planned thing, a planned evaluation, a planned thing to say, okay, this has worked, this didn't, let's change this. I need a new trainer, I need a new physical therapist, I need a new mental coach. Whatever it is that you need can be changed, of course, if it's not working for you. And only you can decide that. No one else can. But it should be planned. It shouldn't be, oh, I had a bad game, so I'm going to forget everything that I've been doing. I'm going to hit the snooze button tomorrow. I'm not going to go work out. And you're only hurting yourself.
Excellent. Now, one of the things that I like to hear as well from athletes at your level is not only how to deal with the failures like that, but what I refer to as short-term failures, especially with young kids. You know, they miss a shot and then they're pouting the next 3 times down the court and they screw up other things. How do you deal with those sort of things right in the heat of a game so that you're not making it worse by how you're dealing with it?
When I coached both pros and I coached youths. One of the things that I always looked at was body language. When I was a scout, I also would go early to a game and look at players warm up and watch their body language. That's a huge indicator of a barometer of how a person is doing, how a player is doing. And it's easy to tell when someone is about to have a bad game, or they're going to continue to have a bad game, just based on their body language. So that's a big key. I think if you can control what you give outwardly to 8 fans, 15,000 fans, doesn't matter. What you give outwardly, if you can control that, that's a big step to how you're feeling inside. And you won't be swayed so much by disappointments or a missed shot or things like that. Of course, everybody is disappointed when they miss a shot. If you miss a wide receiver wide open in the end zone, you're going to be disappointed, of course. But hey, there's the next play. I got to be ready for that. You know, the next play, maybe you hit the guy in the end zone, and everything's good. Nobody's going to think about the time when you missed him in the end zone. So you have to be able to kind of let it roll off your back like a duck, you know, like water off a duck's Absolutely. Back. And that ability to switch it. Okay, I didn't get that one, but I'm going to get the next one, and stay positive is a very big factor, and that is part of what you're giving outwardly. And if you're showing that you're frustrated, if I'm guarding a guy and I see he missed a shot, I'm going to be on him the next play if his body language tells me he's still disappointed after going up and down 2 or 3 times. I'm going to go at him, right? So you have to give that confidence to yourself. It may be a little bit of a facade at times, but still, what you give outwardly influences so much.
Absolutely. And you said something in there that I appreciate, because it actually leads me to a question I wasn't planning on asking, but you talked about when you were a scout and the things that you watched for. In my Confident Athlete program, I have everything from kids in middle school all the way up to Division I athletes. What are some of the things that kids should know? I mean, regardless of the sport, but we're talking basketball. If they're wanting to get recruited to play in college, or two, if they want to get recruited to play in Europe or wherever it might be, what are some of the basic things they need to know?
It's all the same across the board, all sports, all different men, women, it's the same. I have friends that are football scouts. I have friends that are basketball scouts. I also scouted. I also coached. We're looking at things a normal player would not even think about. For example, like I said before, then I would go early to a game, watch them warm up, see how focused they were, things like that. I have a friend that coaches football, and he told me one time that he likes to see how the players interact. He's talking about pro players, how those pro players interact with the younger players that are maybe not pros yet. He likes to watch how if a pro will interact with a younger player and show him different moves, or show him exact techniques on how to move a block or things like that. Those are the things that they look at. And scouts see sportsmanship. It might sound kind of petty, but they see you pick up your opponent. Okay, maybe not every play, but if you knock a guy on his butt, hey, every once in a while, help him up. Okay, that's not taking anything away from you. And coaches and scouts, they see really insane small details that go by in a split second, but it registers in that scout's head. Something, how loud a guy talks on defense, for example. I like to see the loudest guy in the gym because he's aware, he's focused, he's got his swivel head, he's looking at everything, he's analyzing things, and he's helping his teammates by talking loud. That was also one of the things that I like to see, how loud a guy talks on defense. One other thing that is not really seen on the court or on the field is character. I just saw a statistic also yesterday that something like 65% of all D1 coaches in this survey said that the number one priority is character. And how would they find that out? By talking to you, by talking to your family, by talking to people that know you, your coaches, things like that. So these are the kind of things that are very, very important, and character should not be underestimated. It's not just talent alone. It's not what you do on the field. It's not what you do on the ice. It's not what you do when you've got the boxing gloves on. It is what kind of person are you? And that's very underestimated.
Let's talk about when you were a coach. What's the biggest lesson you learned as a coach that you wish you would have known as a player?
Oh, that's a good one. Well, as a coach, I would have kicked my player out of the gym quite a few times. No, but I would say that's a really good question. I would say as a player, I will admit sometimes I thought I could turn on and off the switch. Basketball came quite easy to me as a player. Okay. As a coach, not so much. So I had to really work my butt off to be a coach. And I saw through the work that I had to put in as a coach how easy it is to think that you can turn the switch on and off, but you can't. It has to be always on. And that was something that I learned by being a coach as I went through my coaching career, because I really had to work hard to be a coach. It did not come easy to me. Although you would think, okay, you played college, D1, you played 13 years as a professional. It's a different transition to being a coach. And so I really had to work on the fine parts of being a coach. And I wish I would have known that as a player, that turning that switch on and off is very dangerous. It's a very dangerous game. And as I got older as a player, I realized that, but I didn't realize that when I was young. I thought I had the talent and the ability to turn it on and off like a light switch. And that's one thing that I would, as my coach would tell my former self as a player, that you can't turn it on and off. There is no switch.
Right. No, thank you. I appreciate that. That's some great insight. So tell us about that transition. You went from player to coach to teacher, and I want to start finding out more about the author.
Yeah, the author was something that was always in me. And as a pro here in Europe, you have a lot of downtime. It's not like the NBA life where those guys are practicing quite often, or they have endorsement projects or things that are going on that take up a lot of their time. Those guys are very busy. Over here, it's not so much like that. We practice 2 to 3 times a day, but really you have quite a lot of downtime. And I had the idea to write my book. Let me backtrack and tell you what my book is about. My book is a guide for American players or Canadians or any players who aspire to play here in Europe. It's a guide for their rookie season. It will basically take you from your junior year of college through the end of your rookie season in Europe, and all the steps that you need in between, how to look for an agent, how to prepare yourself to come over to Europe once you've decided on an agent, things to look at in contracts, to look out for in contracts, things like that. It'll basically guide you through if you get hurt, if you get fired, what could happen in your first year over here. So I basically had the idea to write that book probably about 4 or 5 years into me being overseas, because what I realized is that although there are a lot of American players over here, there's not a sense of community. Everybody's kind of on their own. And I wanted to give back. I wanted to help those coming behind me with tips as an old head, to tell these young guys, hey, this is what to expect. And I didn't really have that when I first came over here. I came over here not knowing anything about Europe, nothing about the pay salary, nothing about the different leagues, none of that stuff. And what I've noticed since I've written the book and I'm being reached out to by a lot of players, is that a lot of players have still no idea. You would think that now with the internet age and things like that, no, they still have no idea, because a lot of the guys are focused on being NBA guys, and Europe is kind of a backup plan where there's really guys making a really, really lot of money over here. And so it's kind of like a backup plan. So if they don't make the NBA, then they start thinking, okay, now let's go to Europe, kind of thing. So I wrote the book in order to give advice and give those in need of information on what to expect, and a way to have something in their hands where they might think, okay, I remember Sean wrote in chapter 6 about what happens if you're injured. Do I need to get a second opinion? Am I allowed to get a second opinion? How long can I expect to be out, or what does my contract say about me being out longer than 6 weeks? You're probably going to get sent home if you're out longer than 6 weeks. But you have to know that, and your agent may or may not tell you these kind of things. So what I wanted is that they would have something in their hands that they could look at any point in their career, even after their rookie season, because there's a lot of information in the book that would help paying taxes, debunking the myth that what you make over here is tax-free back home. That's not true. Uncle Sam wants his money. So healthcare, things like that even after you finish your rookie season, you can look back and say, okay, I know that I'm allowed to get my money back in Germany if I play here longer than 2 years. How do I go about doing that? So there's a lot of things that are in there for not just your rookie season, but also for long term.
Wow. So share the name of the book again, and I will, like I said, I'll put it in the show notes to make sure people can get it.
The book is Same Name, Different Game, and it is just a guide for helping out athletes, men, women, the same, get over here. And there's a lot of stories from my own career infused in the book that give a little bit more personal touch to it. Like, for example, when I broke my leg, that was a moment that changed the whole course of my career. And a lot of people wouldn't know how to handle it. I didn't know how to handle it at the time. And what I would aim is that someone in the same position would understand better what they should expect.
Okay. Well, that's excellent. Such a valuable resource. What would you consider your biggest highlight of your career?
Pro, college, high school?
Biggest highlight, whatever.
Ooh. Okay, I've been fortunate enough to win a title everywhere I've been, every level that I've been. I won
very cool.
I won high school state championship. Then in college, we were fortunate enough to win our conference championship. Then as a pro, I've won 1, 2, 3 championships in different countries. But I guess my biggest accomplishment as a pro is probably my first championship. No, actually my second championship as a pro is probably the biggest one, because there was a big emotional part for me, because we were playing against my former team,
okay,
and things like that. So that's always a thing that drives a person. And when I won that title, that was definitely a moment of in your face. And so it was a gratifying moment, and it was like reaching the top of the hill, because my first championship was over here they have something called cups. So it's like a tournament within a season. Okay. And so we had won the cup. So that was technically my first title. And it was against the same team that I had just left. But it wasn't the championship. That was a mini title. And then the championship was against my old team. And I made the basket to put us ahead.
Oh, cool.
And so that was a definite emotional roller coaster kind of thing, and one that I'll probably remember for forever. But I've been very fortunate to have played on some very good teams and been able to win a lot of games and some championships here and there. And so it's hard to pinpoint one, but I guess that would be it.
Yeah. Where'd you go to high school?
I went to Western High School in Las Vegas.
Las Vegas. Okay, cool. Mm-hmm. All right. Now, if we were just sitting with all the athletes in my Confident Athlete program, and mm-hmm. they come from all sorts of sports, soccer, basketball, football, baseball, motocross, hockey, everything. And age-wise, it's about middle school up to Division I athletes. What is one piece of advice you would give these athletes?
Don't give up on your dreams. Don't give up on your dreams. I mean, I know that sounds very cliche-like, but it's true. I mean, at some point you have to be realistic. You have to look yourself in the mirror and say, okay, this is not, my dream is maybe too high. For me, I knew that I was not an NBA caliber player, right? But that didn't stop me from pursuing other avenues, other ways to keep playing. I definitely had that talk with myself, like, okay, Sean, you are not an NBA guy. You're not going to get drafted. And although I had hopes, and of course I dreamt of being an NBA guy my whole life, but at some point you have to have the hard talk with yourself a little bit and say, okay, maybe this dream is not the one that's going to be it. But that doesn't mean your dream is dead, by no means. So it's just about reevaluating and not giving up. When I broke my leg, I could have given up as well. I could have given up on basketball and not played another day. But that was what I wanted to do. I wanted to keep playing as a professional, and so I put everything into my rehab in order to pursue my dream. And I really lived my dream. It didn't matter to me if I was playing in the NBA or if I was playing in front of, 800 spectators in Austria. I was doing what I love to do. And that for me was a very big key, keeping the dream alive. And I never gave up on my dream. But I know there are people who get close to their dream, never quite reach it. But you have to understand that it's not going to happen for everyone. And just because you didn't make it to the pinnacle of your dream doesn't mean you're a failure. You could be a success in something else. And there's nothing wrong with that. And I know it really sounds like a cliche, but you just shouldn't give up on your dream. Just keep giving it everything you got. And especially as athletes, of course, Father Time is undefeated. So you're probably not going to be able to reach your dream at 45. That's just the way it is. But as long as you're able to pursue that dream physically, mentally, spiritually, your family is behind you, everything, why not? Just keep going.
I love it. Thank you. All right. Now for our listeners, where do they find you? Where do they follow you?
I am more on Instagram than anywhere else. I'm on Twitter by same name, different game. I'm on LinkedIn also by same name, different game. And I am on Instagram by same underline name, underline different, underline game. And that's where I focus most of my attention, because that's the group that seems to understand what I'm trying to do and how to give back, and and reaching out to me and asking me questions and things like that. So that's more my focal point. I also have a website, SeanJMcCaw.com, where I do a blog, running blog on events or things that are going on concerning the book. Or, for example, I put one up today, wondering that the title is "What If versus Regret," which goes more into my college career. If I had stayed in Arizona, University of Arizona, where I went as a freshman, would I have gone to the NBA if I didn't transfer? So it's a thing of what you think about, the what ifs at times, but you never have regret, or at least me. I don't regret leaving, but every once in a while it pops in my head, what if? And that's just for me.
So just out of curiosity, how many of those on that roster and went to the NBA?
Yeah, that's
I saw that.
Okay. There were 4 that what you would say had a career in the NBA. 4 guys on my team that had a career. There were a couple guys that never really latched on, but they played 1 season, half a season, things like that. So they made it in a sense. Yeah. And I was one of those guys that Had I stayed, I think I would have had a career just because of the development I probably would have taken. One of the guys who was my same year as a freshman wasn't as talented as I was probably, but he also made it to the league. He played a year and a half, I think, for Golden State. I was probably better than him. So who's to say that I would not have been in his place had I stayed? You never know.
Right.
I don't regret anything, but it's human nature to think, what if? And
right,
that's
absolutely.
something that I things that I write in my blog, just things that are interesting about basketball or things like that I hope the readers will enjoy.
Absolutely. And like I said, I'll make sure that this is all in the show notes, but if also on Instagram, if you go to the link in his bio, it has the link to everything you want as well.
Right.
But I'll make sure you've got access to all of that. But Sean, hey, thank you for being with us. Congratulations on a magnificent career and good luck with your continued success, and the resources you put together are so valuable. So thank you. And we'll get those shared for sure. But really appreciate you taking the time to spend with me, for me this morning or this afternoon, for you tonight. And I really appreciate it. Thank you.
No, thanks for having me on. I'm really thankful for the opportunity to tell my story. And I think what you're doing is wonderful. Since we've hooked up online, then I'm a fan. And
thank you.
So keep at what you're doing, because it's definitely needed. It's definitely important.
Hey, as an athlete, I know you focus on and put a lot of effort into your physical game. You have to become the best that you can be. But are you putting the time and effort into the mental game as well? Because the mental game is just as important as the physical. And it's often what is going to separate the great athletes from the others. They have the mental game plus the physical game, and it helps them to really tap into their full potential and become the best they can be. So join us in the Confident Athlete program. Come and see it at jeffheggie.com/confident athlete. And what we're going to do is we're going to show you how to develop that mental game so that you have a powerful mindset, so that you have extreme confidence and you really unlock your full potential. So come and check it out at jeffheggie.com/confident athlete.